When you have fruit trees in an urban setting, you need to make sure that you can control their spread, control their height, and control the amount of space they take underneath them in terms of shade. This is a beautiful peach tree that I pruned in winter, and I'll include the link and some of the snippets to that video, that we now need to come in and thin out for some very key reasons. Not just for growing in urban areas or urban homesteads, but also if you had an orchard. There's some key things you need to keep in mind when growing stone fruit like this peach tree and summer pruning to make sure you can maximize what a single tree can give you in any given season. All of that is coming up next. So this peach tree's new growth is about 1 meter in one season so far. And right now we're in the middle of summer, which means it's the perfect time to control some of this vigor and get rid of some of the wasted growth. So the remaining part of summer, it can put its growth into thickening up and sturdying up those key scaffold branches we're trying to establish on younger fruit trees, so that in future they can bear heavy crops without the risk of the tree's branches snapping or bending or not yielding the way they should. And that leads me straight into why do we need to summer prune our stone fruit? Not the other fruit trees, specifically stone fruit. There are, in my opinion, 2 categories you need to consider. Young trees that you need to establish, and then mature trees that you need to control and maximize fruit production. They have very different approaches to summer pruning. For example, young trees you prune for structure. Mature trees you prune for fruit production. So if we look at this tree in front of us and we're looking at younger stone fruit, why do we need to summer prune these? First of all, like I just mentioned, we need to maintain and improve the structure of the tree. If we are getting lots of new growth in areas we don't want it, or in areas we're not going to use in the future, the tree is going to end up putting a lot of energy into areas that we're just going to throw away. So rather get rid of those and let the energy go into the branches we want, and we can end up with a finger thick branch that's going to turn into a 5 cm diameter branch. So that's the first one, is structure. The second one is light and air penetration. What we want to do is continue to open up the canopy. It just so happens to be a very windy day today, so airflow is not a problem. But when you have those windless days or very, very light breeze, you don't want a bush like this where airflow through the middle and center of the tree is difficult, because that's going to lead to fungal issues, disease issues. And then the third thing is we want to get the right growth in the right places to give us the structure we are looking for. Whether that's an upright, modified upright, open vase, espalier, all the different types of structures you can add to your fruit trees, you need to make sure that this is helping that, not hindering, and then you do need to come in and make immense amounts of cuts in the winter season. So now we get to the juicy part, which is how do we actually summer prune stone fruit, and for instance this young peach tree, and what is it that we need to look for to make sure this tree gets exactly what it needs. What I'm going to do to make it as easy as possible for you to remember this moving forward with your own trees is we're going to start from the ground and work our way up. Starting on the ground, we need to look for suckers. Suckers are any growth that appear from either the base of the tree in the ground coming out or along the roots as the roots start expanding. They can be detrimental to the overall health of your tree because they will suck nutrients and energy away from the tree. And if you leave them over time, they may even overtake the tree, the main tree, and completely kill it. So I've done a video on the importance of removing suckers, which I will include in the description for you. It was on a pear tree, but it doesn't matter. The same principles apply to stone fruit, peaches, all of that. So make sure the base of your tree is cleared of any new growth from the variety you are trying to grow. Then if we move up along the base of the tree, you'll often see that when the trees start putting out growth, they have new growth everywhere. And what you need to do is control that to make sure you don't get branches outside of your primary scaffold that you're looking for. So just go from the base all the way up, all the way around the tree, and look if any of those buds have started swelling, turning green, or started growing. Just take your thumb, rub them off, and you won't have a problem. If you leave those, once again, like suckers, you end up getting lots of vigorous growth below the main canopy, which is going to suck energy away from the branches that you want. Going further up, we get into the inside of the tree. And this is probably the most important part of summer pruning, is getting into the guts of the tree and making sure we remove anything that is blocking sunlight, blocking air, and sending growth inwards that we don't want. So we're going to start in the middle, and then what we're going to do is work our way out in terms of branch structure and how we can refine our primary structure. There is also a concept called cleaning the chimney, which I've seen a few videos use, and that is basically treating your main stem and your primary branches as chimneys at each subsequent branch, and making sure you don't have growth within a thumb, it depends on the size of your tree, but within a thumb or a hand's length of a branch. So if you have your stem, you're going to have no new growth along the chimney. Then you're going to have your first primary branch coming off, and depending, like I said, on the size, the bigger the tree, the bigger the gap you need to use. But for this one, I'm going to use a thumb length. So anything from the primary branch connecting to the base that is within a thumb length connection, I'm going to remove so I can keep that section clear, and then we can start working on branches. So starting at the very inside of this tree, remember I spoke to you about cleaning the chimney? Here is a perfect example. Here I have the stem, here's my first primary branch, and here is where the first split out comes in. This is, if I use my concept of the thumb, you can see it is within that thumb length. Now that is a branch that has to come out. And suddenly, this branch has a lot more breathing room. Then we have a look at the scaffold that I've created. Here is branch 1, there's branch 2. So this one coming out here is nice growth, but it's not growth that I want, and it is taken away from the main tree. So I want to make sure that I don't have that. The primary branch coming out is slightly above, but now you can see immediately from cleaning out the chimney on this branch, it's clearer. Now exactly the same applies over here. You can see there's my other primary branch over there. This is a very, very strong and vigorous branch, but it's really, really close to the main stem. It's one finger joint. So this one, even though it's a really nice branch, also needs to come off. You can see it's got a lot of really good growth on, but sometimes you got to make the sacrifices to get the tree to where you need it to be. And you can see immediately this whole section over here has cleared out quite a lot. So let's move further up the tree. So when you start moving out of the center of the tree into higher up branches, there are different things to look for. So now what we're looking for is inward growing branches. So we have our normal branch that goes out, and you'll always find upwards and inwards growing branches. Those, over time, if you leave them, will end up closing that open center we're trying to create for airflow and light penetration. Then what we need to look for is crossing branches. If there are branches that are crossing, rubbing, anything like that, they're never going to get used on the tree. So just get rid of them. And then if anything has succumbed to fungal issues, bacteria, they've died back, anything like that, remove those as well, so that you don't risk that any dieback or further complications with that dead branch on the tree. So I'm going to take you up a couple of branches. We can discuss this, and hopefully you get what you need to look after your little tree. So if you have a look at this branch I've just cleaned up, and we follow it up all the way, you'll see that this is a really well structured branch. So we have the one forking into two, and if we go out of that one, You can see it's starting to get new branches over there, and if we move further up, there's another set of branches all the way through to a really healthy growing tip. There are no inward growing branches on that one, and this one we'll just leave to elongate. As that elongates, it will thicken up the join and the branches, and in winter we will then cut this back to a reasonable length. The same applies to this branch. If we move up, it's actually really well structured. There's a branch coming off that side, quite a few nice branches growing on the tip over there with a really healthy growing tip. So this one we are not going to touch either. So here we have a problem branch which is really hard to work with. We have our primary branch over there, and you can see right underneath our primary we have growth that has come underneath, but it's not giving us that 45-degree angle we want for strength of the branch, and it's actually thicker than the branch, and it's growing out all the way over here and has actually overtaken the primary branch that we have put in place. Now this is where things get tough, because you have a beautiful thick branch and the last thing you want to do is cut it. But it's something we have to do to maintain our structure, and sometimes you just got to make the tough calls and do what needs to be done. So come in here, there's a collar over there. Don't cut behind the collar, otherwise you might kill the branch. Leave about 1 centimeter, snip it off. Very tough to do, but this tree has a lot of light. So now if we have a look, we can see there's another branch growing downwards, which is a bit of a problem because we might end up with the same as that. It's the same there. Take that one off. This one is coming out the side. We can leave it, and if we start going further up this trunk, we can see this one is growing straight up, which could be an issue, but this one is growing in the direction we want. So then, as with the other one, which was a tough call to make, let's go in straight up branches, snip them off, and now we have a beautiful branch that can continue growing. If we look at the one behind it, this one over here, this is an inward facing branch, which must come off. These other two are scaffold branches on the side, which I'm totally happy with. So there you go. We have now done a summer prune, which, as you can very visually see, has opened up the center of the tree quite significantly and has now started reinforcing that primary structure we are trying to create. Here, branch 1, branch 2, and over there, branch 3. So now I'm standing in front of a much skinnier tree. This is not as nearly as dense as it was when I did the intro to the video. It looks a lot happier. It's way more open, and this is what came off, almost more than what's currently on the tree. Now this is the next thing you need to look at, which disappointingly I find almost no videos talk about. Very little advice is to actually take this and start cutting it up into little pieces and put it at the base of the tree. What this is nutrients taken from the ground, photosynthesized to make into more nutrients, which, yes, you can add to your compost pile, but this tree is actively growing. Why not give it straight back to the tree? So literally all you do, take your scissor, cut it up into little 5 to 10 centimeter pieces, lay it around the base of the tree, and you're done. You've now added some green mulch to the base of your tree. That's going to return some of the nutrients it's taken from the soil, plus some more. So always think about the waste you produce, how it can benefit the ecosystem, and how you can put back what has been taken from the soil. I hope you managed to get some value out of watching this video, and I also hope that now you know how to summer prune your stone fruit, peaches, nectarines, plums, all of those, to get improved results within urban areas, but also out on orchards. The importance of summer pruning cannot be overlooked when used in combination with winter pruning, So yes, if you've got any questions about what I have shown you, what I have spoken about, please drop them in the comments below. I will get back to you. And if you feel any of your networks would enjoy this, please share it out and also subscribe to my channel so you can see how this peach tree is going to give me huge harvests into the future. Until next time, happy pruning!